Hank, so I'm back with offensive line stuff. Um, I'm gonna first go over the pending free agents Minnesota has at the offensive line position. They're all interior guys. You have Easton, Brett Jones, and Compton. Easton had an injury in training camp, I believe, and it was a neck hernia, which never good for an offensive lineman. And Brett Jones was traded for at the end of the preseason for a seventh round draft pick. And then there was Tom Compton, who was brought in to be a backup, and I guess you could say played how a backup should. But Brett Jones, I know a lot of people don't like the PFF. I'm going to be using some PFF in this, though, because it's really hard to gauge offensive linemen without using that, like in terms of like obviously like for guys that we know, like Tom Compton, PFF's not as needed, but for some other guys that we don't know, other pending free agents, it's helpful. But Brett Jones, he finished with a 53.1 grade, which was below average. He's 28 years old. I feel like he's going to need a vet minimum in order to come back. Like, once again, just no guaranteed roster spots for any of these guys, really, I don't think. Tom Compton, like, I know the PFF grades is 60.6, and it says he was the 45th overall guard. He was considered average. I think that's a lie. I think that should be much closer to like 40, but he's already 30. He's not very good. Probably just let that one walk. Nick Easton's the intriguing one here because he played decently well in 2017, and he has kind of the traits you look for in those zone blocking linemen. He's very good in space, and he has very good initial quickness. Now, neck and back kind of injuries, nothing to scoff at. This could be a potential kind of career-defining injury for Nick Easton because he could come back from the injury and play well, but he could very easily, well, just as easily, come back from the injury and never be the same. And he was not really fully developed anyway, because the last time he played, I think he was 25 years old. Now he's 27, and it's a little sad to think about because that was a potential guy that you looked at like that could be a staple at left guard for years to come for this team if he developed the right way. And obviously he got hurt and never really got the chance to develop, and it could just be one of those kind of stories, you know. But Brett Jones, like I said, he needs to take veteran minimum in order to come back, and no guarantees. No guarantee he makes roster spot. Compton, I think, would have to do the same thing in order to come back, but I'm not sure Minnesota would even offer him after this past season was such a disaster with him at left guard. And there's a reason why they're considering moving Reiff to left guard, I would think, just because I can't think that kind of says something about Nick Easton and those other guys they have there. But that's just what I think. Now, I have some potential free agent guards available. The first one is Roger Saffold. I know we don't have enough money to get Roger Saffold, but I couldn't leave him off the list as he is quite possibly the best guard out there, you would think. So Saffold, the left guard, obviously he comes from the Rams. He's 31 years old, and by the PFF standards, 73.8, good for the number 7th guard in the league with an above average grade. And his 2018 cap was a whopping $7.95 million. Now, that's a lot of money, and I don't expect that to go down too much, if at all. It's probably going to go up. So I think we're probably not in there for Roger Saffold, which is unfortunate because he's very good. That would have been very helpful. Andy Levitre, he's an interesting name to me. He's also a left guard. Played for the Falcons last season, but also got hurt. He tore his triceps, which is another concerning one. But he's 33 years old, had an average grade at 61.2, and his cap hit was $5 million. But you'd think with the injury and the age combined, probably cheaper than 5. And most of these guys, you're probably talking about at least bringing back Nick Easton to compete for a job, not so much just handing him the job, assuming Riley Reiff stays at left tackle. Now, I know some people don't think that, but I don't think it's really set in stone that he's a left guard like it was last year with Remmers being a right guard. And yeah. J.R. Sweezy, he's another one. He's from Seattle. He's 30 years old. He had a 45.7 grade, which was good for number 73 in the league, and that was a below average grade. But Seattle did have the league's best rushing offense, which leads me to believe at least something was done right there. And I think we would take either run blocking or pass blocking, as we normally get neither. So if he's even decent at one of them, you kind of have to throw him on there for at least competition / depth guy, because that's probably what he could potentially be if he's just like a fringe starter kind of guy. Might be a key guy you look in at, like, oh, maybe we can bring him in to compete with a Nick Easton. But you never know. He has the athletic traits. He converted from a defensive line position to the guard. So he has that burst in those athletic traits that you would want in a lineman. DJ Fluker, he's a right guard for the Seattle Seahawks again. He's 28, made a $1.4 million last season, and his grade was 49.2, which was good for number 70, also below average. Kind of a similar deal with Fluker when it comes between him and Sweezy, just because league's leading rushing offense. And probably have to at least consider those two before you say no, just because of that. But my initial instinct is probably not. Then I have James Carpenter, coached by Rick Dennison last year with the Jets. He had a 56.3 grade, and he was number 55, and he was average by their standard bar things. He made a whopping $6.7 million last season. That's gonna correct itself in the market, I think. I don't think he's gonna get nearly that much. But that's just how that is. And if he made quite the first impression on a one Rick Dennison, we could see him line up in purple next year. Same thing goes for Dakota Dozier. He was kind of like their backup. He was like their interior swing guy. And the interesting thing about him is that he is athletic, and they used him at fullback, which is interesting. And he's 28. He graded with a very similar grade to James Carpenter with a 54.5 compared to his 56.3. So could be potentially comparable in terms of actual production you get as well, thus making him a very valuable backup piece at least. And he was only making $720K last season, so at least in terms of the cap hit. So it's a nice little plus. We know he's not going to be that much. There's Mike Person, who I think could be a little diamond in the rough here. Mike Person, he's a right guard for the 49ers, and kind of similar to Andy Levitre, he came from the whole Shanahan thing, and that's very similar to the whole Kubiak way of running styles. Like they both do this zone blocking, and they're very similar in how they do it. So getting a guy from the Shanahan offense who did well could potentially mean they could fit into the Kubiak one, and both Levitre and Mike Person do that. Mike Person is actually younger than Levitre, as he is 31 years old, but the difference is he made $630,000, at least, once again, cap hit wise, and he was 67.2 in the PFF grades, which was good for number 18 among guards, which was above average. And that could be either him overperforming or potentially just a really late bloomer. We might get like 2 or 3 years out of him that are pretty decent to good. And could be a slight diamond in the rough in the end here with Mike Person. I kind of like this idea, as our right guard is currently Mike Remmers, and I would like that to stop. Jonathan Cooper, he's another guy I have on here just because of the name value. I know he's talented. He was a high first-round draft pick, and it's just kind of more of a name value thing and potentially a fringe backup. The other guy I have down here is AJ Cann, And AJ Can, he was drafted in, I believe, in the third or fourth round of the 2015 draft. He's now 27 years old, and he graded with a 60.6, and he was number 45 and was considered average by the Pro Football Focus folk. Now, he just kind of, yeah, okay, because I view him as probably he's an improvement to Mike Remmers, but he's not going to be someone that prevents you from doing other things to that spot. Like I kind of feel like he's one of those guys that you feel like, well, he's okay, but you constantly want to improve over him, but you always have other needs. Like, and he's just going to be, it's not really an eyesore, but it's like kind of average, very average. That's how I feel about him. Kind of meh, but that's just how that is. And before I end this little video, I want to mention two guys before we forget about them, which is guys currently on the roster, by the way, that could kind of take off in the whole Kubiak/Dennison offense. You could be looking at Danny Isidora. He was a fifth-round draft pick in 2017. He plays right guard. Like I said, Remmers, not that great. But Isidora has actually gotten a lot of praise from Mike Zimmer since he was a rookie way back when. So he has all of the traits you want in his zone blocking guard. He has all the short area quickness. He can get to the second level. You can pull him out for screens. You can pull him in general. You can, go side to side with him. Has the movement, the agility, the whole deal. He has all of that. Now, the one thing he has lacked was strength. And it's going into his third year. You could be looking at a guy who used the NFL weight room and all of a sudden becomes at least decent. And it's a little interesting, I think, to think about that possibility, as he has, I think, this opportunity to take this step forward in his development and maybe could become more than this backup kind of guard. And then the other one I have is Aviant Collins, which he's kind of played everywhere at this point. And if you recall, at the end of his rookie year in 2017, we started using him in jumbo packages where he was kind of just destroying people in the run game, and he was just showing some real nastiness in it. And then he's uber athletic for that guard/tackle position. He had a 4.81 40, and he also has strength, so he had the 34 reps at the combine. So just really raw. That's his deal. And I think last year in the preseason, we started to see him come around a bit more. And once Nick Easton was down, I think he made a real conversation for him being the starting left guard of this football team. And then he kind of didn't. I assume it was the experience thing. I know Zimmer really values the experience. And then he eventually found his way onto IR. But once again, under Kubiak and Dennison, we could see a guy with his kind of athletic ability really take off in this offense. And even though his pass protection last preseason was still iffy, I think him in the run game would be beneficial because I think they're going to run more. And I think it could work because he excels at the very things that Minnesota will be asking them to do. And you could see, once again, a guy come up and actually play well where you didn't really expect him to. Because although I wouldn't necessarily count on either of these two being like, oh, that's the guy, that's who we're rolling with, I also won't rule it out because we have seen things like this in just professional sports in general, where you have an issue on the team, and then all of a sudden, some guy who wasn't really thought much of, kind of took the spot and kind of ran with it. And it wouldn't be the first time, and it wouldn't be the last time if it were to happen now with one of these two guys. But I think these would be the two guys to think about if they were to develop the right way over this new regime of offensive people. I would like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. And until next time, I bid you all adieu.